Alright fellas, Jake Paul is always in and out of the news. Since the Mike Tyson fight, which was almost half a year ago, there hasn't been any official announcement about what's next for Paul. There's been talk about Canelo, Tank Davis, and Anthony Joshua, but is any of this serious? Jake Paul might have some serious problems finding his next opponent, and he could be on a path that no one expects. Paul versus Tyson, whether you loved it or hated it, was one of the biggest boxing promotions of 2024 and will probably go down as one of the biggest of the decade. A massive spectacle and undoubtedly the biggest event Jake Paul has ever been a part of. Tyson's name propelled Jake to an entirely new level of stardom. Already a well-known YouTube celebrity, stepping into the ring with Tyson solidified his place in the minds of multiple generations, many of whom wouldn't have paid attention to him otherwise. After his loss to Tommy Fury, it seemed like his hype train had derailed. But Jake managed to rebuild his brand, schedule fights, and regain momentum. Now, his name and brand are arguably bigger than ever. Despite past criticism, his careful selection of opponents has positioned him as one of the biggest figures in combat sports, if not sports as a whole. Like it or not, you can't ignore him. 12 months ago, if someone had said Jake Paul and Canelo Alvarez would fight, it would have sounded ridiculous. But in boxing, money talks. If fighters are offered close to 9 figures for what looks like an easy night's work, they'll take it. That's why the Jake Paul versus Canelo fight nearly became a reality. The rumor is that the Saudis threatened to pull Canelo's 3-fight deal, forcing him to fight William Skull instead, because they didn't want Jake versus Canelo to overshadow Crawford versus Canelo. With Canelo off the table, Jake turned to Gervonta Tank Davis. Jake was spotted at Tank's fight against Roach, which immediately sparked speculation. A Paul versus Tank fight would have been a Logan versus Mayweather 2.0, taking 2 stars from different backgrounds and creating one of the biggest spectacles in boxing. However, Tank's draw against Roach put that fight on hold. A fight between Jake and a Tank coming off a draw isn't the best promotion, especially given the massive weight difference. With Tank likely rematching Roach in June or July, that fight seems dead for now. Next, Jake Paul called out Anthony Joshua with rumors of a fight in 2026. This seems beyond absurd. If Jake took a clean punch from Joshua, it's hard to imagine him getting back up. The idea of Jake fighting a true heavyweight is almost comical. It would be like a death wish, but at this stage, taking a loss seems like part of the plan. They know that in these fights, the best-case scenario is Jake surviving 8 to 12 rounds, and the worst is him getting knocked out cold. Why take these fights? Simple. Legacy. Every fight Jake has taken has been an attempt to legitimize himself as a boxer. He doesn't want to be remembered as just another YouTuber turned boxer. He wants to be taken seriously. Even if every opponent he's faced has either been past their prime or at a disadvantage, his record still looks respectable at a glance. So what's next? Jake Paul's main priority is securing a major fight, while his value is at its peak. He may even take a year off to set up a massive fight for late 2025 or early 2026. Out of all the rumored names, Tank Davis seems like the most realistic option. Why? Because he's the only one not influenced by the Saudis, and Jake would have a major weight advantage. If he doesn't secure a big fight, Jake Paul could eventually fight for a world title. But in what division? The likely answer: Bridgerweight. He's hovering around the weight already, and the competition isn't strong. UFC veteran Tyson Pedro recently beat a high-ranked Bridgerweight in his first boxing match, proving the division lacks elite talent. A sanctioning body would love the payday that comes with a Jake Paul title fight. Potential opponents: Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. or Tyson Pedro. Winning a world title would silence critics, at least in Jake's mind. Even if it's another carefully curated move, technically, he'd be a world champion. And let's be honest, the debate with KSI is irrelevant now. Jake is levels above KSI in terms of boxing opportunities. KSI's biggest hope is still a fight with Jake, while Jake is chasing some of the biggest names in the sport. If everything else falls through, the Jake Paul versus KSI fight is the last resort option. For KSI, it's the best fight he could ever get, but for Jake, he has much bigger names in play. At this point, the biggest challenge is finding an opponent who can generate as much hype as the Tyson fight. To sustain his Netflix deal, he must fight someone big. Who do you think Jake Paul should fight next? Drop your predictions in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.